Hello, my name is Josh Swanson, and today I'm going to be giving you a little sneak peek into the public accounting industry and giving you an overall analysis. The industry is rapidly growing, has a lot of potential, and is a great industry as we look forward into the next 10 years, and will continue its prestigious reign as one of the great business industries in both performance and job outlook. To give you a little bit of background on the accounting industry as a whole, it's very large and includes firms that can help with the individual, governmental firms, non-for-profit firms, as well as the public firms as well. Due to how large the accounting industry is, that is why I'm going to be focusing on specifically the public industry. And the public industry brings in around $110 billion a year. It's made of 1,000 firms. Um, the makeup of it, most people recognize the top 10 or the top 7 or 8, but specifically, pretty much everyone knows the big four, and that's Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, KPMG, and Ernst & Young. There's also recognizable ones like Grant Thornton, RSM, Baker Tilly, BDO. But like I said, there is thousands of firms. Most of these firms, the businesses or the services that they provide are tax, audit, consulting. Some may other provide like IT or some side services as well, but the big money bringers or the big revenue builders for these firms are tax and audit. And what kind of makes the public industry so unique from any other accounting industry is the CPAs, Certified Public Accountants. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as I go along in this presentation. So kind of what does make the industry so unique? The biggest thing is the necessity of services. Audit is so unique because it's taking a unique look at the financial statements. It's basically doing accounting backwards and making sure that every number is correct and there for a reason. Taxes, everyone knows what tax is. It's filling out your taxes. But at the business level, it's a little bit more complex. And there's a lot more rules and regulations. And kind of to build on, these audit and taxes, if you're a public company, your Nikes, your Apples, your Amazons, your Microsofts, in order to trade on the stock market and to be eligible to file with the SEC, you need to have a certified audit opinion from a third-party public accounting firm. A lot of those big companies, their firms are Deloitte or EY, and because the stock market is always a thing, is always an important function of our economy. Therefore, the audit services will always be a necessity. And to kind of build on top of that is the unique skill set. You don't come across every business person who can take apart a financial statement and understand all the rules and regulations of what goes into building a balance sheet and an income statement and how what that means for the business and where you can find what makes up the revenue account. And that's a unique skill set, and that's really brought on in the CPA process, certification process. It takes 150 academic credit hours to be eligible to be a CPA. Then you have to pass 4 rigorous academic tests. It takes months of studying. And then also you need about, I think it's two full years of a certain amount of hours of experience to fully be certified. And due to how rigorous it is, it's what allows the individuals in this industry to be so successful at such a unique service. So kind of how does the public accounting industry fit into the big picture? Like I said, with the stock market, it's essential to the functionality of the economy. Not only are public traded companies required to file with the SEC and get that audit opinion from a third party firm, private companies or companies that aren't big enough or don't want to be on the stock market, they still utilize these services because they still have necessities in order for their business to function at this maximal level. If a company wants to acquire a new building and they need a loan from a bank, they need to turn in different financial statements and they need to show different, things like EBITDA. And they can't do that unless they know how to calculate those things, know how to properly lay those things out, which by the help of an accounting firm, can help them do that. And because of how essential that is, the accounting firms always be essential to the functionality and the health of the economy. Kind of going along with that, the accounting industry, or the public accounting industry, is pro-cyclical because it has such a positive effect on the economy and boosts the health of the economy as long as the accounting industry is healthy and full of healthy individuals. But there is kind of that piece where the accounting industry, public accounting industry, is very susceptible to policy change, whether that's tax code. With COVID, we saw a bunch of changes in the tax code, and it is really important that anyone in tax in the public accounting industry knows the changes, knows how to evaluate them, because it translates to the business. For example, there was the employee retention credit, and if a business doesn't know about this and the accountant doesn't know about this, they can't help their clients succeed, because this is something that can help a lot of small businesses succeed. And then you got Sarbanes-Oxley. This is important because it changed the entire fundamentals of auditing, and so just a great example of why it's susceptible to change. Next, we're going to go to the SWOT analysis. Strengths. Kind of like I mentioned, the biggest strength is a necessity. Everything I said before. In order for public companies to trade on the stock market and file with the SEC, they need the services of public accounting firms. They need the services to file their taxes. Even companies that don't publicly trade or aren't the biggest companies in the world, they still utilize the services because they need their financial statements to work properly, both in appearance as well as substantiality, and that they can't have a successful business without that. Another one is the rigorous certification, i.e. the CPA exam and CPA certification. Because of how rigorous it is, it keeps bad apples out. Not that people that aren't CPAs, that don't have accounting degrees that aren't CPAs, aren't smart, talented people, but the public accounting industry has a prestigious view because of the individuals that make it up, which are all the CPAs, and that is just a huge strength. And lastly, the industry as a whole kind of has a monopoly among all business industries. The skills, auditing, financial statement analysis, tax, these skills are super unique, and you're not going to find them anywhere else. So the industry as a whole doesn't really have competition. It's kind of just, the top 10 firms are always going to reign as the top 10. And this kind of leads into weaknesses. Like I said, the industry as a whole has kind of a monopoly, but we're actually seeing within the industry an oligopoly forming of the big four. Deloitte brings almost $13,000 million in, annually. And if you look at the fourth largest, which is KPMG, they're bringing in almost $5,800 million. And then if you compare that with the fifth ranking, which is RSM, they're bringing in just over $1,300 million. And that's a huge gap. That's almost $4,000 million in a gap there, and essentially, that can cause issues because from a competition standpoint, you've got the big four separated among all other firms. So now it doesn't really allow any of these 5, 6, 7 ranked firms to compete and to move back and forth and chase clients. It kind of just puts them within their own pool. And also within the industry, more focused on the individual accountants. And due to how rigorous the CPA certification process is, a lot of these accountants don't have a lot of other skills aside from, accounting specific. They don't have, some of the market or sales or consulting or other foundational, business skills that other individuals might have coming out. And although they can be developed over the process of a career, take marketing, for example, it may take some time, but not being able to utilize those marketing and sales skills to potential clients at the start of a career is huge for the firm, especially with how competitive the industry is. Then we got impending technology. Technology is always going to be developing and advancing. And the one nice thing about accounting is because of how necessary it is to have individuals it's never going to be a worry of if technology is going to completely wipe out, the people aspect of accounting. However, we are seeing some lower level accounting positions being eliminated, like, people who work in accounts payable, accounts receivable, just because of how adaptable the accounting software has become. Next, we have opportunities. Like I said, kind of in the beginning of the presentation, the outlook of the accounting industry is awesome. I mean, there's great job outlook in the next 10 years. There's a 7% job outlook specifically, with about 96,000 jobs going to be available. 15, or I'm sorry, in the next 15 years, 75% of CPAs will be retiring according to this AICPA, which means that if an accounting student is committed to the CPA process, he or she is almost guaranteed a position in an accounting firm coming out of college, and that's huge. And then on top of that, because of the CPA certification and the rigorous process, you're looking at great starting money. On average, you're going to make about 50 to 70,000 starting out, depending on where you live and for what firm. And that's, that can be 10 to 20,000 more than other starting positions in other industries and other careers. And then even on top of that, you're looking at quick promotions. If you get hired, if you go into auditing, you get hired as an audit staff or an audit associate, which is the starting position. You can move up to an audit staff member in 1 to 2 years, and then even be up to a senior in 3 to 5. So in 5 years, you can be up 2 promotion levels, which is huge, because not only does it allow personal development, but it allows for financial development and just career development. And then lastly, we have our threats. I kind of touched on this a little bit with mentioning Sarbanes-Oxley and the tax code, but one of the big threats of the accounting industry is the continuous changes to policy. I mean, you've got changes to the, like I said, tax code. Sarbanes-Oxley is a kind of a once in a lifetime change, but it still is a massive change in how it formulated how auditing works now. You've got GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, PCAOB, and there's amendments that are added to those two specifically every few years, so it's not as often as per se the tax code. But a lot of these amendments can be very drastic or vast in kind of the understanding of them and how they can change things. So it can cause burnout among individuals, and it is a threat because when is too much? What do we consider too much amendments, or what do we consider too much? And then secondly is cybersecurity. Like I said, technologies can continue to advance, and one of the advancements in the accounting world is that paperwork and private information from these clients are all being stored on the cloud or on a computer in the firm's database, and that means it's susceptible to cybersecurity issues. So one of the threats is the increased amount of money allocated to expenses in terms of specifically trying to get the correct protection from any cybersecurity threats, and that's a huge deal. Additionally, it also means that there's going to be some increased use of technology because of how everything's kind of moving to like the cloud, and that means there's going to be some additional training and costs that might be incurred because you have to train, you have to train your CPAs and maybe some coding or some IT things that can help them utilize and know how to protect in minimal ways against cybersecurity and know how to use the cloud correctly. And then lastly is the foreign exchange rates. And this is huge because this is kind of what has allowed the big four firms to kind of separate themselves from the rest of the group. And that is because they've gone global. And their immersion into global markets, although it's very positive, it does have some weaknesses. And one of the threats is that as firms increase their revenue and clientele globally, there's foreign exchange rate issues. If a foreign exchange, if the euro or whatever foreign currency is constantly changing in the exchange rates and it's constantly going up and down, it can cause not only severe headache and very hard to track, but it can cause revenue losses and make it difficult to see how worth it is to take on a certain client or two globally. So in conclusion, the accounting industry has a great job outlook. When you compare it to other industries, there's a lot of good to look forward to.